There are so many peripherals available for flight simulation today. Everything from sticks to collectives to throttles. Throttles and control panels and rudder pedals and trim wheels, touch screens, cockpits, motion simulation, desk setups such as the Bravo and the Alpha, and all the way into virtual reality. But what about the little guy? What about someone who needs something small form factor that has just about everything you need for flight simulation? Stick around, guys. If you are interested in acquiring any of my Overkills tutorial guides for Microsoft Flight Simulator, or simply interested in supporting the channel, please consider joining us on Patreon. Patreon subscribers level tier 2 and above have access to all of my guides, as well as any future releases that come down the road. Patreon link can be found in the description below. All right, so I'm sort of just going to talk on, you guys. The video you're seeing here was pre-recorded, but I'm going to do a quick unboxing for you guys. I'm not normally one into unboxings, but I know a lot of people like them. So I'm sort of going to talk to you guys about a few things right out of the gate. So first off, this thing launches on January the 8th. You can find it on the Sporties Pilots website as well as on the YawMan's website. And this is the YawMan Arrow here. As you guys can see, it's about the size of an Xbox controller, maybe a little bit bigger, but a heck more functionality out of this thing. It is extremely lightweight, and yet the control axis, which you guys are going to see later on inside the simulator, are very, very functional and very, very sensitive. It's very easy to sort of fine-tune everything to your liking. Now, there's a bunch of profiles that come default inside of Microsoft Flight Simulator. This thing supports Microsoft Flight Simulator, P3D, Infinity Flight for Android, XPlane, as well as DCS World and many other simulators that will take use of this kind of control scheme. Now, Microsoft Flight Simulator comes default, as I said, with 3 different profiles. It's got a default profile, a helicopter, and a jet profile. All of the control buttons or control axis and buttons feel very, very nice. They feel very, very solid and smooth. You can really fine tune things and tweak them really, really nicely for something so small. The trim wheel works just like the Bravo throttle quadrant does in the aspect that when you roll the wheel forward, you're actually depressing a button. Same thing when you roll it aft. So it'd be just like if you've used the Bravo before or are familiar with it, it works the same way. The overall design of it was very ergonomic, I think, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later, you guys. My only complaint for ergonomics would be the trim wheel. I wish it was a little bit more towards the center or maybe up on top. But it is a very, very well thought out design. They've really done an amazing job. And I'm going to tell you guys right now, one of the things that this thing relies very heavily on is key combinations. And with the key combinations that I'm going to show you guys here in just a minute, when we get into the simulator, they really included just about everything that you can pack into something so small. I have been following this product since Flight Sim Expo 2023, where I first got a hold of one of their beta units. I was able to mess around with it there at the expo, and then I received this version a couple of weeks ago. Now, I've only used it a few times just to sort of get a very generalized feel for it, and that is for a couple of reasons. Number one, I really wanted to maintain the initial feedback feeling inside the sim with you guys. You guys are going to see some of that. My flying skills are nowhere near what you would expect to see on my channel, and that's because I'm not used to using any kind of hand controller. I don't ever use a hand controller when it comes to flight. I've done a couple reviews in the past of different profiles with the Xbox controller, tested around a couple things for people, but I've never really been one to use any kind of controller like this. As you guys can see, it does do direct connect with a USB 2.0. 3.0 is not required. It uses 2.0. And so very, very easy. Comes with a really nice pamphlet. I will say the warning card sort of caught me off guard here. You guys are going to see that in just a second here. Sort of threw me off. You guys can go ahead and pause that and read that if you'd like. But just to give you guys a heads up of some of the stuff that's in it, I don't think it's dangerous, obviously. But it also has a QR scan code that you guys can takes you to the setup guide for the YawMan Arrow. But I will say once again, the documentation that at least was submitted to me is very, very nicely done. They give you a we have a documentation now as the initial reviewers, if you will, of a simplified profile. The default profile that comes with inside the sim is very complex. It's a much more advanced profile, has a bunch of key commands that can be kind of tricky to remember. But they have documentation for all of that. But what they've also created is a simplified profile more for general aviation. But you guys will see that in the sim in just a moment. So let's get started. All right, you guys. So as we get into this, let's go ahead and first talk about a couple things that come right out of the gate. They have a couple of default profiles. Now, these profiles will be automatically added. I believe it is slated for Sim Update 15, if memory serves. It does already come with some default profiles that are already in there. However, the default profile is a little bit more advanced. And today we're going to sort of be operating off this starter profile. Now, you guys can see some of the stuff that they really put into this. Here it identifies all the different items as far as what they are actually called, so you can reference them accordingly. Now, the one thing that my first criticism of this product here is that these numbers don't seem to reflect what's actually in the sim. At least that doesn't seem to be what's happening for me. But that really doesn't bother me. So they have this starter GA profile. It's a simplified profile that basically, for me, for you guys, hopefully, well, I guess if you order it now, you would have to do the same thing. But they tell you how to sort of set things up and what combinations to use. And we're going to be going through some of this. Now, I've done most of this. I'm actually sort of tweaking it a little bit to my own and playing around with it. And that's the thing that I really love about this. If you guys have been following my channel for any length of time, you know that I'm a big SPAD.next user. Now, right now, I'm not using SPAD. We're using only the Microsoft Flight Simulator GUI today. But I will definitely be adding this to my SPAD.next collection, and because there's just a lot more that you can do with SPAD that you have a lot more control over. But as far as inside of the sim, you can bind all of these different key combinations. For example, you guys can see here, toggle pause. This is what they're recommending. So you take all three of these buttons, all three of the top buttons here, push them at the same time, and it should toggle the pause. Now, I haven't set that one up. What I did do was the auto engine start. So we've got that set up. You guys will see a lot of that here in a minute. Landing gear, I'm actually using this button here. I haven't set my autopilot functionality yet. I haven't decided how I want to do that. And so I'm sort of going by, you guys can see how they laid out the different profiles and how to set things up based on different key combinations. So a single press here, you guys can see, will toggle your different altitude modes. But then if you come up here, you have different options based on what other button that you select. There's a whole bunch of different ways of doing this. You have all of your D-pad functionality here, centralized button here. You have a depressing option here on the POV hat. Now, I did set the POV hat up. I have not used a POV in heaven knows how long, guys. So bear with me on that. I didn't set the flashlight up. It wasn't something that I wanted to do just yet. But you guys can see, so for example, here it's with the right bumper press is what I was getting at. So if you want to set things up like this, you would set it up as right bumper and the corresponding 6-pack button. So I haven't gotten into all of this yet. I'm more or less getting comfortable with just sort of flying with it, but I want you guys to see it. Okay, now I've used it a little bit already, just sort of give some feedback to the developers, but I really wanted to keep things raw because I want you guys to see the options here. As far as the size goes, this is slightly, I would say slightly bigger. I don't know where the heck I put mine, but slightly bigger than an Xbox One controller. But the comfort, I'll tell you guys right now, is perfectly fine. It feels good in the hand, and I have very large hands, guys. Hopefully, I don't know if you guys can see my mouse here. But there you go. Definitely something. Let me make sure that you guys can actually see that now that I'm thinking about it, because I can't see what you guys are looking at. So let's see here. There we go. Yep. Okay, cool. So there's the mouse. Okay, you guys can see how much bigger my hand is over the mouse. Okay, so you guys can get sort of a comparison here. It's a very nice size. Okay, so I want you guys to see that they have a profile already set for you guys, and there's a couple of different profiles you can choose from that you can set it up, and basically you just look at the PDF and you configure your sim as you would like. But let's get inside the sim so you guys can see what I'm talking about there. So inside the sim here, let me turn that browser recording off. There we go. If we get inside the sim, and we go to controls. All right. Let me mouse on over here. It's all the way at the end for me. This is the one that I have created, but you can see that it comes with YawMan Arrow jets, YawMan Arrow helicopters, and the default. The default is pretty complex. There's a lot of key combinations. Now, one thing that I am not happy with, as far as, this seems to be a Microsoft Flight Simulator problem. I would not consider this a problem with the YawMan. Is Microsoft Flight Simulator tends to behave really weird with key combinations. If a key is a part of a specific combination, and you strike that. For example, I had the toggle cursor mode enabled, and it was supposed to require a key combination in order to enable it. But regardless if the key combination was pressed or not, the cursor mode kept toggling. That's a Microsoft Flight Simulator problem. That can't have anything to do with this. Microsoft Flight Simulator is supposed to detect 2 different keystrokes. It's not detecting 2 different keystrokes. It's only detecting 1, and yet it's still triggering the event. So do keep that in mind. That is sort of a problem. But again, that is one of the big reasons why I personally use SPAD.next, is because I cannot stand all the weird issues with binding controls in MSFS. All right, so enough of complaining about MSFS. Let's start taking a look around. So you can see I've set up my POV point of view hat. Okay. It also has a reset. So if we push the button, it resets the view and you're back to good. The trim wheel, I do have the trim wheel set up, although it looks like I need to reverse it, but that's all right. We'll deal with that at a later time. Let's see here. There it goes. The trim wheel is a little on the slow for the input side, but that could also just be, again, it's because it's using a button depression. Every time that you rotate the wheel, it's not actually an axis. It's actually triggering a button, much like the Bravo from Honeycomb does. So let's go ahead and just start it. We're gonna start it. We're gonna fly it and see how things go. So, assuming that I remember how I did this. Yep. Oh, nope, that's my landing gear. So it must have been the bottom one. There we go. All 3 buttons on the bottom. Engine starts. Let's take a look at the axis so you guys can see that action. All right, so here I have my prop set up. They actually had this as toggle the landing gear. I've used this button as my landing gear button. Here's our mixture. And I actually haven't bound this to anything yet. I haven't decided. So I've got a free axis depending on how I decide I want to do this. And I definitely appreciate all the effort they put into the profiles. I'm just very much so a person, I like to dive in and set things up my way. And that is the beauty of this, is that it has so many options, so many buttons, so many control options here that I have that freedom. Right there is where they've sold me. I'm going to go ahead and clear the yoke. And let's see here. We already walked through the auto start. Alternators. Avionics master. I don't know why the auto start didn't trigger that for us. I'm going to figure out some sort of key combination for my lights. But for right now, I'm just going to go ahead and just going to turn on the nav lights. I won't be flying with the landing lights and things like that today. We'll get there. We'll go ahead and turn the strobe on. Why not? Okay, because I want you guys to see the flying action. That's the big one, is the control that you have while you're flying. That's what I want you guys to see the most of. I'm really impressed with the sensitivity of the sticks. I want to show you guys that. All right, there's our Garmin. All right, so to release my parking brake, I'm going to hold these the top 2 buttons, which are our wheel brakes. Throw the trim wheel forward a little bit. Let's add some power. And you know what? I'm actually going to bring my camera up just a hair. So adding some throttle in. Get her rolling. There we go. I can tell you guys right now, for anyone who may play on a laptop or doesn't have a lot of space, this is killer. And by the way, this functions with Microsoft Flight Simulator, XPlane, Prepared 3D, DCS World, and I believe I'm forgetting one, but it's been tested and used with multiple different products. And of course, the runway for today is 29er right. But I'm not going to worry about taxiing all the way down there. I want to get airborne so you guys can see that. The rudder controls is nice and sensitive. You guys actually might have to adjust some of these axis settings, the sensitivity, if you're real heavy on your fingers. The brakes are push buttons. Go ahead and bring flaps down for takeoff. Although I don't really need the flaps for takeoff, but it's fun to play with something here. I will tell you on the advanced profiles, the autopilot functionality was really cool to have. Activating speed bugs. You use your plus and minus here on the D-pad. You set that up so you would trigger one of these buttons that would select, say, your speed bug or your altitude bug, and then you would use the plus and minus controls inside of Microsoft Flight Simulator to actually adjust whatever autopilot setting that you're playing with. All right, so here we are. Let's go ahead and stop it. And let's rock and roll. So I'm gonna start adding power in, holding the brakes down. Releasing the brakes. Remember, I'm taking off with a pretty nasty tailwind. So that's why we're getting kicked around quite a bit. Once we get moving, stabilizes very nicely. Rotating. Good rate. Gear coming up. Good speed. Oh, flaps coming up. Let's trim that nose up. Let's zoom back a little bit. It's a very bumpy day. For any of you guys who fly the Mooney, you know the propeller pitch is very touchy. And I was very easily able to just give it a little tap. And adjust it as I like. Trim nose down now. Oh. That was my fault. I trimmed nose up instead of nose down. I will say the trim wheel's a little weird. I think I would have liked to have seen it in the center or maybe up here somewhere. I think it would have been more effective there. But it's still very nice to have. And it's, I mean, you guys are seeing what I'm doing. It's not impossible to get a hold of. But a very, very fine controller. This thing is awesome. Far better than an Xbox controller could ever provide. I have used Xbox controllers on multiple occasions in the sim, doing different testing different profiles and things like that in the past reviews. And this thing is far superior. The rudder pedals being, or the rudder axis being on the same axis. So when you move one, the other one moves, right? gives you that nice feeling because you can feel it in the opposing finger. So you can sort of feel right away what's happening. That's a big plus. The different key combinations that they were able to come up with. You guys, the documentation on this thing is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. I'm actually having a really good time coming up with my own key combos. Like I said, I'll be using SPAD.next, and in my next video on the YawMan, I will show that to you guys. And that's just because, like I said, you can do so much more with it. It's not near as finicky. But that has nothing to do with the controller. I really like the size of the controller. They definitely had guys with big hands in mind. I don't get any cramping in my knuckles or my hands from the way that you're holding it, because my hand's sort of laying more or less flat. I mean, it's really not cramping over. I don't have to really give it a lot of break. All right, we are turning and burning, so let's pull some power way off here. I'm going to set up a key command where we can swap tanks. So the thing that I really like about SPAD, by the way, and the reason why I'm super excited to use SPAD has a couple of different options, right? So you have, with SPAD, you can set up a quick press, but you can also set up a hold press. So if I just tap a button, I can have it do one thing, and then if I press and hold it for, I believe it's a half a second or more in SPAD.next, it will do something completely different. I gotta really pull that power off, because I did not set up the speed brake in this aircraft. I'm gonna do a quick circuit here because I'm not gonna get down fast enough. Well, maybe I will. Speed's coming down. Just outside the arc still, but I'm gonna go ahead and do flaps 1. Nah, I'm not gonna make it. I'm gonna turn. So I'm really excited with the different keybind combinations that are going to be available. Doing things my way, sort of, if you will. But it's going to be basically doing the same thing that YawMan already put into their profiles. Just instead of using different keybind combinations, I'm going to set it up in SPAD and show you guys what you can do. Sort of a 2-for-1. I know some people have their feelings about SPAD, and I'm sorry. I have used it for years and years. I love the program. I haven't had any problems with it. That's where I'm at. So I know my last SPAD video, some people got pretty upset about that. So I just wanted to toss that out there real quick. But I really enjoy it, and it's going to work wonders with this device. This thing is way too cool. But Microsoft Flight Simulator offers the same thing. And the other thing about, you know, in SPAD as well, and I'm not trying to make this about SPAD, but I'm really excited to program this in SPAD because SPAD also can do keybind combinations on top of the short press, long press, quick press, you know, whatever. So there's really a ton of option. And then this thing is just, it opens up so many doors. You've got 4 different axes here that you can mess with, right? So you could even do throttles on 1 and 2 engine. You know, if you're flying twins, you know, do throttles 1 and 2, and if you wanted to, you would probably have to set these still up for mixture and prop for both engines. But there's so many different options here, and they've really done a great job. I'm really digging the sensitivity. That's the biggest thing that I'm super happy about, is how responsive it is in these smaller range of motions. Let's add some prop back in here. Go ahead and bring the gear back down. Go ahead and go to the next stage of flaps here. But now that I've done the initial showcase here, I really am very excited to show you guys what I'm going to be able to do with this. I'm going to be able to do a lot with this. I'm really excited about the options that I'm going to have with this, and the layout. The layout is phenomenal. You know, it's really exciting. And as you guys can see, I'm flying on the desk. A lot of my tutorial guides and things like that I do a lot when I'm doing the PDF tutorial guides that are found on my Patreon site. I do all that from the desk. So, you know, having something like this is going to really open up a lot of opportunity to clear up a lot of space on my desk and, you know, not keep things quite as complex. And this is a phenomenal device for those who are, like I said, either limited on money, limited on space. Maybe you're someone who wants to be able to, like I've got a good friend of mine who wants to be able to hang out in the living room with his family on his laptop while also flying in the sim. And this is his answer. This is an answer to that. This is a perfect solution to that particular scenario. As you guys can see, I've still got some practice that I need to do with it. Come on, Mooney. There we go. Gonna float a bit. Came in a little hot. Gonna float a lot a bit. There we go. Oh, there's the bounce. That was terrible. Ah! Stop it. Trying to get it under control before I start hitting the brakes. That was terrible. And that was just pilot error. I knew that was bad when I went after it, so that's the way it goes. So let's toggle our parking brake. Again, very simple. If you look down, you can see the parking brake is engaged. Okay, so now let's give you guys my final thoughts as I bang it on the desk. All right, you guys, so final thoughts. First off, I love the weight. The weight is absolutely spectacular. It fits very, very nicely in the hands. It's very, very comfortable to hold. You don't feel like you're holding a boat anchor. It is definitely lighter than an Xbox One controller, and yet has far more functionality. The different key combinations that they have set up in their own profiles and the documentation they have provided really shows a lot of time and effort and very, very serious thought that was put in. This clearly was not thrown together. I can tell you guys that I first saw their initial demonstration of the YawMan over at Flight Sim Expo 2023 back in June, and I just received this a couple of weeks ago. So they've been really working hard on it, and I've emailed them a few times over the last 8 months or whatever it is now, 6 months. And, you know, every time they're like, you know, we found this issue, we found this. So, well, we didn't like the way this was, you know, and they kept working at it until they got it to where they feel is right. And I think they've really got it. Everything feels very nice. Now, I will say these two here feel like something that on a bad day could break pretty easily. These two are the only ones that give me any kind of concern. And it's just, again, as long as, you know, if you were to catch it on something, bang it on the edge of a desk, I don't know. But those are the only ones that give me a moment of pause. But what I like about them is, like, you can see I'm flicking it with my finger and you can see how little it's moving. Okay. And before anybody says anything about my beautiful bracelet, okay, that says Dad. Okay. My daughter made it. It's never coming off. I don't want to hear it. Anyway, so they really did a fantastic job with this. And I'm excited to do my next video about it because I think when I show you guys the usage capabilities of this in SPAD or in Microsoft Flight Simulator by using all the different key combinations, you're really going to see a lot of advantage to this. Now, as of now, the only thing this is available on is PC. I don't know if there's any intention to add this to the Xbox or not. So if you're an Xbox user, I'm sorry. But let's talk about what it's compatible with again. Microsoft Flight Simulator, Infinity Flight for Android, XPlane, Lockheed on an XPlane that's going to be Mac and PC, P3D, DCS World, and more. Basically, any game that the PC will pick up, you can probably map this to because it just picks it up as a standard controller. So again, you guys can find this on June the 8th. Or June the 8th, January the 8th. So just a couple days from now, this will go live on Sporty's Pilot Shop or on the YawMan's website down below that you guys will find in the description. This will be for $249.99, you guys. It is made in the USA, in case any of that is important to you guys. So let me know what you guys think down below, because I'm really curious to hear you guys' opinion of the YawMan Arrow. I personally think it is a wonderful design. It is a wonderful product that has a ton of use purposes. Obviously, you guys, think about all the different ways that you can configure your drone views with this and check out some really cool shots with this. I mean, you just have an unlimited amount of buttons, the keybind combinations for accessing menus. You can access the cursor mode. You be able to interact with the cockpit. I mean, it really just goes on and on. They've really made it possible to work with just about anything that's inside of the simulator. They've really done a great job. I wouldn't think that there would be so much capability in something so small, and that such, like the big thing, like the 6-pack here, you take those buttons away, take these 2 sliders away, take this away, and you basically do hit, and the trim wheel, and you have an Xbox controller. So think about everything that truly has been added. And then again, like I said, I really like the rudder pedal axis. Takes a little getting used to because I have a stiff hand. So I tend to overcompensate with it. Have fun with that comment, guys. Go for it. But it really is fantastic. So let me know what you guys think down below. I'd love to hear you guys' opinion of it. Again, this is the YawMan Arrow. It will be releasing on January the 8th for purchase. You can find it on the Sporty's website, as well as on the YawMan website for $249.99, you guys. I think it's absolutely worth it given its functionality, especially if it fits your user case. So as always, guys, stay safe and healthy. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.